Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I have with me one of my previous doula clients, Bryce, and I will let her introduce herself. But she has three of the most incredible birth stories that I just can't wait to dive into. And I was lucky enough to be the doula for number two. So yeah, Bryce, who are you, and how did this all start?
Yeah. Okay. So my name's Bryce, and right now I live in Utah, and I have my amazing husband Josh, and I have three awesome kids. And yeah, it kind of all started with my first son. His name is Jet, and he's now 6 years old. So it's kind of crazy to look back on that and be like, I have a 6 year old. He just started kindergarten this year, and it's going by so fast. But at the time when I was pregnant with him, I was 23 years old. Honestly, I had never even changed a diaper until I was pregnant with him. I like babysat for my friend, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should learn how to change a diaper. And we're 23, we're broke, and we're like, oh, we're pregnant, let's have a baby. And we did the absolute bare minimum. Like, we didn't attend any birth classes. Like, I was like, I'm not paying for doula. That sounds insane. I'm just gonna use this place that has takes my insurance, and just show up. And that's essentially what we did. So um I went into labor at I think I created a birth plan. I'd actually be curious what it looked like, right? Like, did I find it on Pinterest, or like where did I come up with all of my wants and desires? I think I had a pretty standard want in that, oh, like, I want to give birth naturally, but I'm open to, kind of like, oh, I kind of want to, but I didn't realize that if you're going to kind of make a decision like that, like, it's got to be a powerful one, and you got to have like your why and your reason behind it. Because when it gets tough, you got to be like, let me come back to that reason. Like, why am I doing it this way? And so essentially, I just kind of went into labor, and I was like, ow, this is kind of uncomfortable. I'm calling my midwife, and she's like, okay, wait for like the 511, right? So, your contractions are 5 minutes apart, lasting a minute for at least an hour. So I think literally at like 60 minutes of that happening, I call her. I'm like, hey, like, this has been happening for an hour. I'm ready to come in. I show up to the hospital, and they like take all my vitals, like all the different stuff, and then they just lay me on my back, right? They're like, lay down, we got to strap all this stuff to you. And they check me, and they're like, okay, you're dilated to a 3. And I'm like, oh, that's not very far. And then they just leave me in this room. They're like, oh, we'll come check on you in a little bit, right? And I'm just laying in this bed, this hospital bed, in pain. Like, every time a contraction hits, I'm like, just like, ow, ow. It's the middle of the night. My husband's kind of in and out of sleep. I like don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I should be asking him to help me with. The nurses are coming in maybe every 2 hours, and I'm just alone. And so then, like, they come back in at a certain point. I'm like, hey, like, it's really hurting. Like, I think I want to get the epidural. So, like, just straight out the window, right? Like, I want to do this naturally. And then the second it's hurting, I'm like, never mind. So they come, they give me the epidural, and I'm like, wow, this is instantly better. Like, this is great. And so I'm just laying there, and I think my husband's parents, had been staying with us at our house, so then they show up to the hospital. And my mother-in-law, like, later at the time, I mean, we're like pretty early in our marriage, so we weren't as close as we are now. And she tells me, now in hindsight, she was like, I walk in, and she had 7 kids. One of them was an emergency C-section, one of them was a hospital VBAC, and then the rest were 5 home births. So she walks in, and I'm just laying on my back. There's no staff around me. Nobody's like, I'm just laying there. She was like, it was the weirdest birth like that I've ever walked in on, because nothing active was happening. You literally were just laying in this bed. And she's like, and I didn't feel confident enough to be like, you, like, do this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish that you had. But I get why she didn't feel comfortable. So she's just we're all just sitting there. the midwife comes in, she's coming in every couple hours. And so then she comes in and checks me again. She's like, oh, you're only at a 5. Let's break your water. I'm like, okay. So, she gets up in there, breaks my water. And then she's like, okay, now you're at a 6. And I'm just like, okay. And they're like, now we're going to up the Pitocin. And I'm like, okay. And they up the Pitocin. And then they're like, oh, baby's heart rate didn't like that. Let's like drop it back down. I was like, all right. And then they're like, let's turn you on your side. Oh, baby's heart rate doesn't like that. Let's turn you on this side. Oh, baby doesn't like that. Okay. Now you need to have a C-section. And I was like, okay. Is it an emergency? And they're like, no, but like, you're not progressing. Like you're at a 6 and you're just not progressing. So we need to have a C-section. I'm like, okay, can I think about it? And they're like, yeah, like we'll give you an hour. And then when we come back in, we need to have this C-section. So I'm like crying. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't sound like when you see like emergency, like on, like Grey's Anatomy or anything like that. It seemed very like almost like they were annoyed with the progress, but I felt like I wasn't in control of anything. I was just laying back and letting people make decisions and letting things happen to me. And I called my dad, who's a doctor, and he was like, I'm like, they say I have to have a C-section. He's like, no, your mom had a C-section with your brother. Like you're like a pretty petite person. So like that kind of doesn't surprise me. Like it's okay. Like it will be okay. And I'm like, okay. And my dad's not like he doesn't like deliver babies, right? So I know he like did a rotation during residency, but like he didn't have any information of like, here's how you can, like kind of like get the baby to come down, and here like he didn't have those kind of tips. But like it kind of made me feel better hearing him just like, okay, like you're gonna be fine, it's gonna be okay. So then they bring us back, and I hated it. They made my husband wait while they like sterilized the room, and I was so terrified. It was so cold. Like it was just I mean, you're getting surgery, so they're wheeling you back for a surgical event, and you're alone, and like they make your husband step out, and then they bring him in, and he's like in full gear to be, he's got the thing on his head. And they start the C-section, and the whole time I'm like, I can feel stuff. They're like, oh well, it's just tugging, but you can't feel like pain. I was like, well, tugging kind of feels painful, but okay. And anyways, it was over pretty quickly, and they like bring him up and they like set him on me. But the way I think my bed was, I'm like kind of like leaning back almost. And I feel like I'm gonna drop him. Like I feel so uncomfortable. I'm like, can someone hold him? Can someone hold him? So all of a sudden my husband is holding this like 3-second-old newborn, and they like bring him over and like start warming him up, and I'm just laying there, and it's just such a like out of body disconnect feeling. Like it didn't feel like I delivered him. Like again, it just feels like it's happening to me, right? And then my midwife, because at that time, like now knowing what I know, like I think she had been on call and she just was like done, right? She wants to go home. She's like, congrats on your baby, like see ya. I'm literally still on the surgical table, and she leaves the building. And this nurse is like, hey, I think she's bleeding a little bit. And they bring another doctor in. Like, there's no doctor in the room at this point. Like, they've sewed me up, they've said their goodbyes, they're leaving. And they bring this other doctor come in, and he notices that I'm hemorrhaging. And my husband says they start pushing on my stomach, and blood's just like flowing out of me. I feel so lightheaded. And I remember thinking that moment, I was like, I'm gonna die. And I didn't even think, like, I mean, we're in, like, this is America, right? Like, we're not in some crazy third world country giving birth with, like, no medical access. Like, it was actually kind of terrifying that because of all the medical intervention, like, my body didn't respond well to, like, the surgery and stuff or whatever happened, right? And so all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I thought I was just coming in to give birth. And now I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm about to like not be okay. And my husband's sitting there, he's like, he said he was next to the little warmer with our little baby. He's looking over at me. Nobody's really telling him anything. And he's like, this isn't good. And so they like, I don't know, they get all the blood out, whatever. And then they bring me to this like recovery room. And I just remember being exhausted, like so weak, so tired. And now they're like, now you have to feed your baby and we got to put him to the breast. And I'm like, I want nothing to do with, like, I need you to take care of this baby because I need someone to take care of me, you know?
Mm.
Um, and I feel like I was just so robbed. Like I remember having in my birth plan, like the golden hour and like skin to skin for the whatever. And then when they're trying, like they were trying to honor those wishes for me. And I was like, I don't want this baby right this second because like I just want to take a nap and cry and like, and I remember my husband did so much of the skin to skin in the beginning. He did so much of the contact and like I felt like I was just this prop that they kept bringing over to bring him to me to like try to get my milk supply to come in. But it felt so like not that I didn't love him or want him, but I wasn't able to make that instant like connection because I was hurting so much from like the surgery. I was so weak from the like the blood loss. It just felt like the moment was kind of taken from me. And it was like after everything in my birth plan had went through the like window, it was like they're trying to honor the things on the back end. And I just didn't have the energy in me to like keep like I didn't want to honor them in the moment. Um and I think looking back, it's kind of like, you know, I run and you know that I run casually. I don't run very much. But it was almost like I showed up to a marathon and I had not trained a single day. And
Mhm.
I was like, let's just run this marathon. And I knew not like almost like I didn't even know anything about marathons. Like I didn't even have shoes to you know like I like what did I bring? Like honestly I didn't bring anything besides my body. Like that's all I brought to this birth and I was not prepared at all and I trusted that I was going to be told what to do and that it was I don't know if I thought it was going to be easier. I don't really know what I thought it was going to be, but it ended up being something that I was like, wow, I should have trained, I should have prepped, I should have, you know, XYZ. And you know, my son with my milk supply, it ended up like not really coming in, and my son ended up having such issues gaining weight. And so for the first 3 months of his life, like we were just in the trenches, and my body was just taking forever. It wasn't making the milk he needed, and like that's okay too. And then almost on the back end of that, I wish that someone had said, give him formula. It's okay. Like fed is best, you know? And so for a while, we didn't want any more kids. We were like, that was so hard and so awful. Like, you are going to be an only child. Like, absolutely, you're going to be, we're done. No more kids. Like, that was a once and done kind of experience for me. So that was kind of my first birth.
Oh, I mean, I remember bits of that, but definitely not as detailed as you're saying now. I just remember that, yeah, you had gone through this experience and then all I mean, when you hired me, I literally was like, this girl is like, she's my top A student, you know, because like you were teaching me stuff. You were just so prepared. And so, yeah, I would love to hear kind of how did you then decide like, okay, we want we want to try this again. Maybe like, what did your thought process? How did that all go? And to you ending up with a doula and your
Yeah.
patient.
Yes. So for our second, I remember I started to kind of feel like I was like, I kind of want him to have a sibling. Like we're, you know, we have about a 3 year gap with all of our kids. And so it was, you know, okay, he's 2 years old, he's sleeping through the night, you know, like we're kind of on the up and up. We're kind of not drowning in the newborn phase anymore. And we've figured out his like eating, like obviously he gained weight and it was like things were going well. And so I kind of started to get that itch of like, I kind of want another baby. And my husband was like, no, like we're not having another baby. And I remember we went on this walk. It was literally like a 3 mile walk of like, I don't even know exactly what I did to convince him that like we needed to have another baby. But somehow we, at the end of this walk, we're like, okay, we're going to try for another baby. And so we, you know, got pregnant. But I think before we even got pregnant, I started doing like tons of like I was like, I am not having another C-section. Like
Hmm.
unless they're literally like, this is an emergency, it's not happening because I didn't feel like mine was an emergency. I think that C-sections and, you know, the OBs that can perform them for life saving measures, like we need those people. But I feel like we've kind of defaulted to it a little bit to where it's just easier for them to control the environment. And it's like, just, they're like, we've just come back to it too much. And so I'm like, it's so great for the people that, like, my mother-in-law, like, her first was an emergency C-section. Like, people that have issues that need a C-section, absolutely. But for me, it literally felt like I was wasting their time. It would be easier if you just had a C-section kind of thing. So I started doing my research, and I'm learning that, like, the cascade of interventions and all the different ways that you can avoid C-sections and this XYZ, and finding a VBAC supportive provider. And so I start researching, and I find this hospital, and they're like the most VBAC friendly hospital in Portland, right? So we get pregnant, and I go for my first ultrasound, and I'm in my appointment, and they're like, yeah, we can let you try, or like, if you do this, we'll maybe let you, like, the verbiage they were using was very like 50-50 chance we're going to let this happen. And I remember coming home, and I told my husband, I was like, I feel like when I show up in labor, they're going to be like, oh, she had a C-section before, like, wheel her in kind of thing. Even if I pass all of the check marks and all the different stuff. And maybe that wouldn't have been, true. Maybe they would have been supportive. But I was like, I think that if I'm near, like, a place where they can perform a C-section, and if I have access to an epidural in the cascade of interventions, I am going to have a C-section. And so then I started kind of looking outside. I had never been someone, I always was very much like I said, my dad is a doctor, and I've I've never thought I would do things like a crunchy way. Like, I just kind of always assumed I would do things kind of like the mainstream way. Like, I was like, yeah, like, I'm always going to give birth in a hospital. I'm always going to have an epidural. Like, I would have never thought I would go a crunchy route. And so then when I found my midwife, I I remember calling them and interviewing them, and they were like, I was terrified. Their practice was literally just a house in Portland. It was literally a home. It had no medical anything. And I asked them so many questions. I was like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And what's your VBAC rate? And they're like, our VBAC rate is 92%. Like, we do VBACs all the time. Like, you are not the first person to come in here, like, yelling questions at us and freaking out and stuff. Like, we know how to help someone give birth naturally, because that is our only option. And we also have tons of plans in place and like protocol in place, so that if we do need to do a transfer, they're like, rarely is it ever a emergent transfer. It's usually like a very calm process type of thing. And so I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And then when they went over pricing, I was like, holy, this is cheap. Like, this isn't really that expensive. I think I paid $1,500 for all of my prenatal and postpartum and birth care. And it was like, wow, okay, this is cheap. And then now we can look at other things. So I took the VBAC link course, and I was like, I still have my notebook. Like, I studied up, I did everything. And it's like, you have to have a doula. You have to have a doula. And so I'm kind of telling my husband, like, this tells me that I have to have a doula, because I'm like a very practical person. Like, this told me that to have a VBAC, I need to have a doula. And so we start looking at doulas, and we're looking at the rates. And my husband's like, we are not paying thousands of dollars for someone to support you at your birth, like, they're not even the person delivering the baby. And I'm like, okay, but this course told me that I need a doula. And so we kind of came to terms that we were going to like interview, and we interviewed one that was outside of your practice. And I'm interviewing her, and my husband's sitting in there, and we're kind of just like, meh. Like, she was nice, like, she was a nice person, but it was, I think in that moment I realized how intimate of an event it was, that you got to feel really, really comfortable with the person it's going to be in your most vulnerable state. And it's like, that person is going to be there for that. And so then when I found, is it Birth First Doula? Is that, yeah. So I found them, and I did a like video phone interview with the owner. And I thought it was so cool, because she actually then kind of, gathered her thoughts, opinions of me, and then matched me with you and then one other person. And then I think we interviewed the other girl first. And it was kind of a similar vibe, like, oh, she's nice. Like, she seems knowledgeable. But I was kind of like, like, maybe. And I remember like 2 minutes into our call, I was like, this is like dating. Like, this is like, we're like on a video chat first date and we are connecting. And like, I now know that I have to have you at my birth. Like, I knew it like instantly. Like,
Mhm.
and it was so weird because it would have been interesting. I'm sure I would have felt the same way if I had interviewed you first. But because I had also already interviewed the other two women, and there was nothing wrong with the other two women. They were great. They were knowledgeable. Like they seemed like they would be really helpful. And then I interviewed you and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't care what it costs. Like this lady is coming to my birth, and like I have to have her.
Oh.
And so we hired you, and it was like, I think instantly the second the contract was signed, you like send me all this information and I'm reading it and we're chatting and we're texting and we're emailing, like, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like this makes total sense why you would hire a doula and why it would be like it's not viewed as like necessary, right? And I think that insurances are starting to get on board with that, they're actually willing to pay for it. And at the time, our insurance was like, absolutely not, we're not paying for this. And so we paid out of pocket and we figured it out and it was fine. But I was also a non-believer that it was a necessary thing that you needed at your birth. And then the second the process started, because I hired you pretty early, I feel like it was pretty early. And so
Mhm.
I had you for the majority of my pregnancy, and you were sending me all these different tips and tricks, and we were constantly talking. And I felt like you're like, yeah, you were so prepared. And it was like, yes, like I feel like I prepped on my side, but I also had like a teacher in you guiding me through everything and giving me all of these different tips. Like I remember with my son, like I never even practiced like breath work or anything. And like it's like, holding ice in your hand, like how are you going to manage that pain and how are you going to use it as energy? And every time you talk to me, like you get so passionate and fired up and you're just like, you are this powerful woman. And like, I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, I am a powerful woman. And you, like, I just bought into whatever you fed me. Like, you could have told me anything and I would have believed you, kind of thing. And I felt so strongly that you believed that I could have a VBAC that I started to believe that I could have a VBAC. And I just I started to buy into it too. And I still had a lot of fear. I think that in the VBAC Link course, you're supposed to do like fear releasing. And I tried my best, but I think all the way through, I was a little scared of what would happen. Um, like, is something going to go wrong? Like, is something going to happen to me? Is something like worse outcome? Is something going to happen to my baby? And am I going to feel like really selfish for not just having a C-section? Because that's kind of how the doctors kind of treat you, is like, there's risk associated with trying for a VBAC, and it's like, but they don't talk about there's also risk associated with a C-section. And because you've had one previously and you have that scar tissue, like it's going to be a higher risk regardless of what version you choose for your birth. And at the end of the day, like whichever you choose for you is the right option for you. But I was not going to let someone choose for me again. And
Mm.
so I had you on my team and we were talking. I swear we talked every single day and we're going through everything and we're the ups and downs and the like, just having that female support. Like obviously I have a support in my husband, but having that female support, like, and that energy and that just like kind of like motherly, like, comfort. And it was just it's like having a built-in best friend that's just there for you in every single way, but is also extremely knowledgeable about the topic. And so when it came time, I remember I felt pretty prepared, but then again, the contractions started. I remember I texted you like, oh, okay, I lost my mucus plug. Like, okay, I just had my bloody show. Contractions are ramping up. And you're like, okay, let me know when you need me. And I'm like, I need you. Immediately, like I feel like even though I prepared so much, it still was like the second those contractions hit, it was like everything I knew went out the window. Like I was like, ow, this hurt. Like,
Mm.
I can't do this again. And so you showed up so early, and like looking back, like yes, the day was hard for me, right? Like I'm the one who gave birth. But I look back and think how long of a day that was for you. And like you literally left my side one time, and I think I yelled at you the whole time that you left me. You're like, I have to pee real quick, 1 second. I literally haven't peed in 18 hours. Like, and I'm like, how dare you leave me, you know? So it's like the world's longest day. But what was so amazing is you come and you're like, you know, coaching me through, like, I didn't have to think at all. Like I always say, I think I put on my Instagram post afterwards, like you dragged me through this birth, and I just blindly just like lead me through this birth. And you're like, okay, we're going to do this active position. Now we're going to do a resting position. Now we're going to do this. We're going to, okay, now you need to eat. And I'm like, I don't want to eat. You're like, I don't care. You need to eat, you know, like you need energy. And now we're going to do this. And, oh, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to go to the birthing center. You're like, it is literally not time. We need to stay here. And, you know, and I'm just like, okay, you're right, you know, and we're going through, you know, all these positions. Like you're like, you're supporting me, you're rubbing my back, you're rubbing my hair. Like it was so incredible. And I remember my husband even had the opportunity to like go take a nap. It's like, hey, like you're allowed to step back and like take care of yourself for a second too. Like he made lunch for both of us. He was able to like step away from me. And then when we did drive, like you put a TENS unit on my back, and it was the most horrible drive ever because it was like so much traffic. It was like 45 minutes. And you know, we get there, you're unloading my stuff. It was so amazing to have that second set of hands. And then we're like getting in the tub, and I remember my midwives too were like, this is great. Like Alice, like honestly, I feel like I was like, I think that technically if it had just been me and you, like we would have delivered this baby and it would have been great, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, but I felt like my midwives didn't even have to step in till the end. And so like it was such a night and day difference because we were like, I felt like I was actively involved. I wasn't just letting decisions happen to me. Like, yes, like you were making a lot of decisions for me and like giving me like choices and options, but they were like informed choices and options. And you were like, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. And this is, you know, how we're going to bring this baby down. And it was just so empowering to kind of like go through it that way. And I mean, again, night and day difference of being on your back in a hospital bed to like doing lunges on the stairs and walking and like being in the tub and, you know, being on the birth stool and all the different things we were doing to manage the pain. And it was so much more, it was still there, right? You know, but it was so much more manageable. And then I distinctly remember, so I started going through transition. I remember I was about to get into the tub because we had to keep getting out of the tub because my daughter's heart rate was kind of dipping. And I was getting so frustrated because the tub felt so good, right? And they're like, oh, like, let's get out for a second. And then I kept wanting to get back in and we kept trying it. So I remember I'm about to get in the tub and I'm in this like deep squat next to the tub. And these contractions just start coming on top of each other, one after the other, one after the other. And I remember I'm like yelling, I'm like, why isn't anyone helping me? Like I start getting crazy, right? Obviously, hindsight, going through transition.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I just am trying to like fight my body. And I was like, I want to go to the hospital. I need an epidural. Like I'm panicking, right? Mm-hmm. And my midwives obviously are kind of like, we're like, we're not going to force you to stay. So they're like, you know, if you want to go to the hospital, Bryce, like we will drive you. And I remember my husband saying he was so pissed because he's like, no, like we are all on the same page that she is doing this VBAC and she's doing it in the like here at this birthing center, and we're not going to the hospital. And you need to get on the same page. But they're kind of like, you know, we're not going to force her to stay, like, or else she's going to sue us type of thing. And I'm like, I remember I'm like thrashing and I'm like fighting my body. Like I'm just not even like with it. And I don't know if you grabbed my face mm-hmm. or if you just got in my face, but you like, I'm yelling and I'm thrashing and I'm like a psychopath, right? And you're like, Bryce, you can do this. And I was like, you're right. You know, like you got so in my face because like everyone was kind of trying to gentle parent me like, oh, like if you want to go, and you're like, listen to me, young lady, you know? And I was like, oh, okay, and like just snapped me out of it. And I remember my midwife had left the room during that moment, and she came back in and she goes, the energy has shifted in here. Like, where, because like, then I was like, I'm on board. Like, I'm going to push this baby out. And it was like, it's so interesting because obviously I've never seen you be a doula to other people, right? Because that tactic might not work on another person. You might make them totally cry, but you knew me in that moment. You knew me better than I knew me. And you were like, I know that she needs to be yelled at for a second right here to bring her back, because like you are out of control. And that was like 100% what I needed in that moment, because I was thrashing and I was fighting my body and I was just not with it and I was panicking, and you're like, hey, and I remember being like, oh, and it just brought me back. And it was like I said, the midwife came in and she goes, the energy has shifted in here. Like, what happened? And I was like, well, what happened is that Allison yelled at me, you know? And then we're like, okay, we're pushing. And obviously we had already prepped and knew that like pushing for your first VBAC, that it takes a while, right? And so I'm pushing and pushing and pushing forever and ever. And I remember my husband was like, my arm hurts so bad because I'm holding in death grip on both of you. And this is the moment that you left me to go pee, by the way. You're
Mhm.
like, hey, I have to go pee. And I'm like, your pants, like, wear a diaper. And then you left, and it was literally the most horrible like minute and a half of my life. Like it was crazy how you leaving for just to go pee was I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it without her by my side.
Mm.
And you came back and I was like, thank goodness, don't do that again. And I pushed for, I mean, you were there. I pushed for 2.5 hours, and it was brutal. Like it was,
Mm.
I definitely hear stories. I still hear stories from my friends, right? And they're like, yeah, like just 2 pushes and my baby was out, or it was 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I sat there bearing down, pushing for so long. And, but I think at that point, even though that was a very long time to push and it wasn't my favorite, it still was like something I could focus on. And I think that's where, like, when you brought me through transition, because it was like, they always talk about transition. You start to doubt yourself. You're like, it hurts. I can't do it anymore. Like, and that means you're close, right? And once you got me through that hump and you're like, okay, let's focus. I was able to focus on pushing. And, I push, 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 you feel the ring of fire. And I think I shied away from it. And you're like, no, like, where you have to push through that and visualize that, and reminding me of all the different things we had prepped for when you're visualizing that breath going through your body and pushing and bringing that baby down. And I think that like I hit the ring of fire and then I backed off, like I literally stopped pushing, and you're like, no, 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 like push through that part. And my husband says, obviously he didn't say this during the birth, right, but he was like, it was so frustrating, her head just kind of kept going like this. And I was like, push her out, like push her out. And I was like, I'm trying. Anyways, and so I pushed her out, and it was just like this immediate, obviously, relief. It was crazy. And to bring her to my chest, and I'm just like yelling to everyone, like, thank you, thank you. I'm like yelling to you, thank you. And then the craziest plot twist was, then you look at me and you go, my other quiet client is in labor. Like, I have to go. And I'm like, I remember I said to you, I was like, go, like, you just helped me reach my goal. Like, my whole goal was to have this VBAC. And like, I am holding a baby that I just pushed out of my body. Like, your job is done. And like, now I just feel bad for you because you have been by my side for like 18 hours. And now you have to go and help another client deliver a baby. And I was like, I hope you got some caffeine. And yes, would I have loved for you to be able to soak in that moment with me a little bit more and celebrate? But it was just like, we did it. We accomplished the goal. And I really, the whole time, even until I was holding her, I think that it's such a, when you've had a C-section and you've been told that you can't deliver a baby naturally, and then you push that baby out and bring that baby up, it's like an out of body, like you're looking at the baby and you're going, this, I just did this, and literally can't believe that I just did this. And I'm holding her and I know I did, and I still don't believe that I did this.
Oh my gosh.
Come here.
It was so incredible. Like, not only like it was my first time at like a birth center in Portland, because I was pretty new to Portland and everything,
Yeah.
but that you were having your vaginal birth after C-section, your VBAC at this birth center also. So it was two things that were like, and that our connection was just there. It was just so mind-blowing watching you through that, and also getting to know you so well, you know, because you so open and so wanting. And I think that there's that will. Some people want to do that extra work and get that and spend time on the relationship. And others are just like, I'm just going to hire a doula because that's what evidence tells me I should do.
Yeah.
And you were my, I will never forget it. Like, I mean, it's imprinted in my brain, your entire birth, because it just, oh my gosh, Scotty, I can't. Hi, sweet girl.
Hi.
It just gave me so much too, to be able to be there for you in that way. And I was starting to also like be like, oh heck no, we are not going to the hospital. Like, it's like
you and Josh both were so mad when I started to try to throw the plan out the window, and that the midwives were gonna let me throw the plan out the window. You guys were like, like absolutely not. And I was like, excuse me, I'm the one who's doing this, you know.
And we have talked about it. Like, if you have a safe word, say it. But until I hear you, like in any sense, like say any kind of safe word, or like I'm out, or like I'm done.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna keep coaching you. And sometimes as a doula, you need to be that fearless person in the room, because you don't have medical needs. Like, you don't have to care about any of that. You can just be there for the person.
Yeah.
And I knew you would just be, you'd be able to answer to
Yes.
grabbing your face and being like, hey.
Absolutely. It was 100% what I needed, because like I said, I was so passionate and like had such strong desires to have a VBAC. And in that moment during transition, I didn't care. I didn't want to have a VBAC anymore, because I just wanted to be done and escape it. And you were able to be that voice of reason of like, no, like, remember your why, remember your passion, like, remember why we're doing this. Like, obviously this isn't the quote easiest route that I could have chosen for myself. You know, I could have maybe chose a different path that maybe would have been quicker, or what, you know, XY. Like, there's so many different routes I could have chose, and like maybe those routes would have been the right answer for some. Like I said, like at the end of the day, birth is birth, and like getting a baby is what we're trying to get out of it, right? You know, a healthy baby is the goal. But I had such a strong desire to have a VBAC, and I did all of my research and I did all of my prep work. And so for me to be able to, like, if you hadn't been there and I had said, take me to the hospital, I want to have an epidural, I don't care, like, and there wasn't someone there in the room that was like the voice of reason, like bring me back to my why, I bet they would have driven me to the hospital. And I mean, the midwife did say, she goes, I think you'll deliver this baby in the car, but we'll drive you if you really want to, you know. And it probably would have been out of a horror story. Like, it would have been pulled over on the side of the road, delivering a baby, so much pain. Like, it wouldn't have been the way that it needed to be. And so, and like I said, I know that you don't grab all of your clients' faces and yell at their, you know, but like I just think that you are someone who, like you said, you make that connection and you learn that person and you get to know things that will help them, that are unique to them. And in that, I mean, you knew that that's what I needed in the moment, and that it wasn't going to like make me cry or like hate you or anything. Like, it was like, wake up, like, you got this. And it was just so, it was the shift I needed. And I just remember it so vividly that I was like just freaking out, and you're just like, you just brought me back.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember too, because you're pretty much the only one I like really did it, because you know, you start seeing when someone starts spiraling, and you were spiraling and suffering. You were almost like getting your nervous system into a space that it didn't need to be. You know, it really was like, you can do this. You know where you're at. You know you're in transition. You know what this is.
Yeah,
you know that you're so close. But just back to your pushing, because you not only having had a C-section before, you need to now push through all this scar tissue also. And that is also what I think people don't realize, is like it is an extra, like you just get extra points, you know, because you did medicated and you did that for so long, but you did it. And I was just so incredibly proud of you. And why I needed to go pee was because my other client was texting me, you know, and it was one of those things where I was like, I can maybe be there in an hour, because I knew you were just going to push this baby out so soon. But it was one of those things where it's like, I need to leave Bryce's side when she needs me the most. She's going to hate me. But
it's okay. I was ripping my husband's arm off, so he was getting some on the other end. But yeah, but I mean, afterwards it was so incredible, and just the recovery was amazing. You were able to come back to my house and like actually get to like look at Remy and like actually hold her and stuff. And my breast milk came in so fast, and it was everything that I needed it to be. And I was able to kind of take that power back and like get that fear out of my head. And I got to the point where, you know, then I was like, there's not like, birthing in a birthing center is safe. Like birthing at home with like your medical professionals and your team is safe. And I don't like the stigma that it's not. And I felt safest there than I ever did at the hospital with my son's birth. So it was just such an incredible experience. And it was just so telling of how important it was to have that support through a doula, and how necessary it felt to have one in that moment.
Oh, yeah. I'll be honored for life. Honestly, it was incredible power that you gave me so much as a doula that day to be able to give to others that I don't think you realize. And I'm just always. And yeah, I'm excited to hear just a bit your postpartum, a little bit, maybe if you have time, for like just Remy, and then like how you decided to have another baby.
Yep. Yeah. So with postpartum, one thing that me and you had discussed before Remy was, you know, I was really nervous about my milk supply because it was such a factor for Jet. And we talked about like harvesting your colostrum. So I think at like 37 weeks, I started harvesting my colostrum, and kind of like, it also helps with like, you know, ripening your cervix, getting it ready for having a baby. And so I was like a scientist, like harvesting my colostrum, and I had all these little tiny syringes with like milk in them. And when my milk came in, it came in strong. Like it came in and it was ready to go. And I actually brought the little like syringes I had to the birthing center. And what was great is that at a certain point, my blood pressure got a little low. I had went and pee, and there was I passed like a little blood clot, and I kind of like passed out a little bit but it wasn't because of loss of blood. They said it was because I saw, what's wrong? That I saw the blood, that they think I just kind of, again, panicked and freaked out. And it was so great to have those little like syringes, because one of the nurses, when they were working with me, they took her and they actually gave her some of my milk, and she was like happy and fed. No, not right now, baby. But then once I started feeding her, like my milk came in great. Like I didn't tear. I think a lot of people that give birth in the hospital and they have like that like coach pushing, they end up tearing a lot. And because like my midwife and my team, can you go give this to daddy, babe? They didn't coach me through it. They let me and my body coach myself through, you know, pushing. And there was no tearing, so I didn't have to get stitched. And I was able to recover, and my body just healed from, go upstairs, baby, because he's upstairs. Go upstairs and ask him. But I just felt like the postpartum, like, yes, you're a second time mom and you just know a little bit more, but my body had just taken such of a less traumatic hit, I think, that I was just able to recover so much faster. And I was able to, I also had tools, because I mean, being a doula didn't stop at the birth, right? You know, you came for postpartum visits, you were sending me like different foods and different things that I could, you know, eat to heal my body, and the different foods that were good for your milk supply. And it was just such helpful tips to recover. I think you were sending me like different supplements, like different smoothie recipes, like different things that I could use to make sure I took care of myself. Like we had already talked about all the different recovery tools. Like I think we talked about like Fitz baths. We talked about you can't find dad. Sorry, I don't know where my husband is. But I also felt empowered in my postpartum journey because I felt confident in my milk supply. I felt confident. Like I was like, I think we already had bought formula because I was convinced my milk wasn't going to come in. And it just comes in like crazy, and she's breastfeeding great and she's gaining weight and she's hitting all these milestones that my son just like wasn't quite hitting. And I just felt so much more confident and just capable, I think, is really kind of what it came down to as well. I just felt like I had the knowledge. Like I said, I came to the marathon prepared. I had trained and I was ready and prepared for what was to come. So,
oh, you really did. You did that. You really did that. I mean, it's such an incredible story that will live with me always. And yeah, how long did you end up breastfeeding for? And when did you guys decide or that it was time to have another?
yeah, so I breastfed for a year, which I only made it with my son. We made it 3 months exclusive. He ended up we were like seeing lactation specialists. He wasn't gaining weight. And then I made it from, I think, 3 to 6 months with him, doing half and half formula. And I was pumping milk for him. But I only made it about 6 months. And it was just such a fight for my body to even make it there, right? And so to make it a year was just, I mean, she was barely even having bottles. Like she was just straight to the breast the whole time. And it was just going so well. And I think we only stopped at a year is because she was eating food at that point. We kind of just switched her over to like oat milk. And honestly, she still drinks a bunch of oat milk. She's 3 years old and she's like obsessed with milk. She asks for milk all the time. But yeah, it was just such a, like, I don't know exactly why we stopped. I think it's just like I hit a year, she was walking, and I just kind of naturally was like, all right, like we're ready. And with her, I was feeling a little kind of like, oh, I don't know. Like we've always kind of talked about having 4. Hi, are you mad? We've talked about having 4. And I kind of feel like I was kind of feeling good with 2. And my husband was the one that started to itch for a 3rd because he was like, having Remy was easy. Like you had such a good birth and recovery, and like her, like the whole postpartum, like it was night and day difference for my son. So he actually was the one that was like, I kind of want a 3rd, you know? And so we got to a point where I think Jet and Remy are 2 years, 9 months apart. And so we kind of hit that point, like she turned 2. And I was like, I'm not really ready yet. I'm not really ready yet. And then we got a little bit further along and it was like, okay, like if we kind of need to make a decision because I don't want them to be like 4 or 5 years apart. There's nothing wrong with that. But just, I was like, we're kind of getting to a bigger gap than like I wanted. And so we actually ended up getting pregnant, and the 1 month I was trying to avoid was a December due date because Remy is a December baby. And I get pregnant and lo and behold, she is due 1 day after Remy's birthday on December 17th is her due date. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Not only does nobody actually really want to be a December baby because of Christmas, but I already have a daughter that has a December birth, and you're telling me I'm going to have another December baby and they might be born on the same day. So that part was definitely not on purpose, but life happens. But I feel like it was kind of good because I wasn't, I don't know if I was like as prepared as like for the pregnancy mentally, with her. I feel like I kind of was like, I kind of kept putting it off. And because it kind of just happened, but a little bit before, I think I was like, oh, maybe we can have like a February baby. So it was only going to be a couple extra months, but because it kind of just like was like, oh, you're having a December baby, I was like, all right, well, let's get prepping. I remember you were like one of the first people I told, and at the time, so fast forward, right? So you're moving to Sweden. I have moved away from Oregon and now I live in Utah. So, actually I lived in Nevada at the time, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm like in the middle of nowhere, Nevada. you are moving to Sweden. And I'm like, oh no, my doula can't come to my birth, you know? And the weird thing is like, I mean, don't get me wrong, hindsight looking back on her birth, like, could I have definitely benefited from having a doula? Absolutely. Like, part of me is like, oh, it would have been nice to have one there. But another big part of me felt like, like I said, it's kind of a relationship, and it felt weird for it to not be you.
Mhm.
Um, and I felt like, yes, I had like a lot more knowledge and stuff, but it didn't feel right it not being you. So kind of what we did instead is that me and you had like a good video chat where we, you know, you're sitting there and you're empowering me and you're like, you are a boss, and you're, you know, I get so excited when you get all fired up. And you know, we went through prep work and we talked about all the different things. I went through um our email thread and just kind of read all of my notes, and kind of, I definitely didn't do as much like crazy prep as I did before, because it's technically my second time, right? I found a birthing center in Utah that I was like excited about, and they were really good with VBACs and knowledgeable as well. And obviously, because I had already had a VBAC, they didn't even treat me like a VBAC. I think there was only one extra ultrasound that they wanted me to get, but I didn't even have to get it. They definitely just treated me like someone who was going to deliver a baby vaginally. And so the team was good. And at the very end, I kind of decided I was going to invite my mother-in-law to the birth, because I think the only thing I felt like I was missing, well, besides your entire self, right? I was like, if I'm not going to get a doula, I still feel like I'm missing that feminine, supportive person. Um, and I felt like my husband had more knowledge too, to where he felt more confident to be able to support me different ways. But basically, similar situation. You know, I go into labor, and I think I even texted you. I was like, I'm in labor. And but still, it's like the pain started to come, and I kind of was like, I felt like I just forgot everything that I already, it's like I've already done this, you know. And we like let my mother-in-law know, because she was gonna have to drive up. We let my sister-in-law know, because she was gonna come and watch our kids. And I was kind of like doing my thing on the ball, and like I felt really in it, right? But then my sister-in-law came, and she starts like watching her kids, and I'm still kind of trying to like labor at the house. And I just feel like the energy is just not there, because like my kids are like, I mean, for example, asking for popsicles, and like, you know, they're like asking my husband for stuff, and he can't really be that person for me. And the energy, it honestly, like my contractions started to go like further and further apart. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm literally not having a baby today. I also was 2 days late, right? So I'm late on my third baby, which was weird. I thought I would be early. And I'm starting to get nervous about how big she is, because it took me so long to push Remy out. And so I'm like, I'm already overdue. And now I started contractions, and now they're going backwards. And the energy just felt weird. So my husband's like, let's just go to the birthing center, because originally we had thought about doing a home birth, but I think for me, I need that energy shift into that space where it's like focused, you know. Um, so we went to the birthing center, and they checked me, and she's like, you're a 4, but like you are not in active labor. You're like talking to me like you are not someone that's about to have a baby like right this second. Like, go home. Or, well, she was like, so go home and rest. And I was like, I don't want to go home. Like, my sister-in-law drove all this way up here to watch my kids. My mother-in-law is on her way now. Like, I need to have this baby. Um, what's wrong? I know, we're talking about your birth. Um, and so they're like, go on a walk. And so at that time, my mother-in-law shows up. So again, now we're however many years into this journey of like her being my mother-in-law, right? And so now she feels a lot more confident of like, you know, kind of being a doula for me a little bit, like, hey, this is what we're doing. So she's like, all right. She's like, we're having this baby. Like, you're not going home. Like, we're having this baby. Let's go on a walk. So we're walking, and like every couple of minutes, I'm kind of like, oh. And mind you, it's like on the boulevard of like St. George, like downtown St. George area. So I'm like walking, and like every couple of minutes, I'm kind of like, okay, let me stop for a second. I'm like, ah, ow, okay. So mind you, again, I was at a 4. They told me to go on a walk. I'm walking with my husband and my mother-in-law. It gets to the point where like I'm like stopping on the sidewalk, and I'm like on all 4s, and I'm like, ah, okay. And I like stand back up. And I'm like, okay, let's keep going. And then so we start to walk back, and it's getting to the point where like we stopped in front of this Taco Bell, and I was like, I'm about to have a Taco Bell baby. Like I'm gonna have this baby in front of Taco Bell, and the ambulance is gonna show up, and like it's gonna be so embarrassing, and like I'm gonna get like free Taco Bell for life or something because I accidentally gave birth right in front of Taco Bell. Because at this point, like I am like groaning and like moaning, and like I'm trying to do. It's so interesting because like the story with Remy is like I'm fighting my body like whatever, and then this one like I'm using my like primal like all the breath work that maybe I might have been like embarrassed to try with Remy that you were telling me to do. Like I'm like, oh, like the low, and
Yeah.
I don't care at all, and I'm on all fours on a sidewalk. I'm on the sidewalk in front of Taco Bell on all fours, like low primal grunting. Like it is my husband and my mother-in-law are laughing at me. Like they're laughing. And so this is an hour-long walk. We walk back into the birthing center. I literally crawl into the room. They have another client there, and they had warned them that like I was probably gonna come back. And they're like, go girl! Like, and I'm like so embarrassed as I'm walking past them. And so then they're like, wow, you seem a lot different than you were an hour ago. Like, let's check you. And they check me, and I'm a 7. And I was like, wow, that third baby, like my body is ready, And my mother-in-law was being a little bossy of like, she's like, let's go on another walk, and I'm like, no, I want to get in the tub. And honestly, again, you're like a little you're not fully with it when you're trying to give birth. And so if I had listened to her, we probably would have had the baby a lot faster. Let's just start there. So if she's watching this, Erin, you were right. I probably should have went on another walk, and it probably would have been better, right? But I was like, oh, I need relief. Like I need that. Like I felt like I did so much active work in that walk that I was like, I need this to get in the tub. And so I get in the tub, and again, my body really likes to relax in the tub, but it's not like actively like, pushing that baby. So I'm in the tub, and they're kind of like, all right, you're still at a 7. You're still at a 7, like, let's get out of the tub. I'm like, dang it. Okay. So I get out of the tub, and I start doing like some ball work stuff. So again, it was like some active stuff. And I started to kind of like make noises like I was going through transition. They're like, hey, like, let's go get you in the room that you're going to give birth in because you sound like you're about to give birth right here. And they check, and usually, your midwives are very like hands off, but she checks and she's like, your bag of waters is like in the way. Like it is very in the way. Your baby is still very high up. This bag of water is like super in the way. And so we decided, I actually let my mother-in-law decide because I was like, I don't want, hey, my husband was running. I was like, I don't want an intervention that is going to cost me, right? Like I don't want to be impatient with my body and it be something that I regret doing. So I talked to my mother-in-law. I said, it's up to you. I was like, no pressure. It's up to you if you think I should let her break it. And they kind of talk about, okay, well, if we're going to break this, she's like, if we break this bag of water, it's like, she's pushing, right? And they're like, yeah. So they break my water, and I literally feel her just go, like clunk down, right? So she was just trapped behind this bag of water. And so she drops down into like a 0 station. And they check, and they're like, all right, you're like fully dilated, but she's still up high. She still was at a 0. And I'm like, okay. So then my body starts trying to like push her, but she's still really, really high up. And again, I wanted to get back in the water. I was like, let me in the water. Of course, my mother-in-law was like, let's walk, and I'm like, no, I want to get in the water. And so I get in the water, and I'm like, my body's trying to push, and they're like, she's still really high up. She's still really high up. And my mother-in-law, she did home births with this one midwife who actually passed away last year, who has birthed over like 3,000 babies. And she's like, she like invented this thing called like power birthing, where she's like, up there like stretching you, and it's like very active, like very like just hardcore, right? Like my mother's a total badass. Like it's when she talks about her births, I'm like, oh my gosh, like you are one tough chick, because I could never, right? And so basically they just keep being like it just seemed like my body needed help, right? And that was one thing that I think was really frustrating, because it was like, I have already done this before. Why is this baby not descending down my birth canal? Like at the end of the day, I think that some people's bodies are built to like have like easier, smoother births. And maybe that is why I had a C-section in the beginning, is because I've had to really work and earn these like vaginal births. And all birth is hard, right? Everybody has their journeys, everybody has their stories. But for some reason, my body has a really difficult time getting these little babies out. And it's so funny when they're born because they're tiny, like they're not like 9-pound babies, they're little bitty babies. But so my mother-in-law was like, hey, like, this is what my midwife did. And my midwife for this birth actually knew her midwife before she passed. And so she was familiar with the type of like, birthing she did. And so she was like, can you like, when she's having a contraction, can you like go up and stretch and like help that baby come down? And she's like, Bryce, I can do that, but like, it's not going to feel good. Right. And I'm like, again, I kind of was trying to like trust lean on my mother-in-law's like knowledge and her like intuition in that time. Cause like, obviously I'm like, no, that sounds awful. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to trust her because I need her to be my voice of reason in this moment. Right. And so they had Josh put his like arms underneath me in like a deep squat. I'm in this tub. They had my mother-in-law holding one leg, the midwife assistant holding my other leg. And during the contraction, my midwife would like stretch. It was like out of a tort. Like it was actually horrible, right? And I was like, ow, ow, ow. And but it was crazy because every contraction I would push and she would stretch, and you could physically, like I could feel Scotty descending. Okay, that was really gross. Don't do that. I could feel her descending down my birth canal. Like every push, I just felt, oh, 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 like. It was weird because with Remy, she was so low so early on, but it just took a long time to push her out, right? But I basically had to have help from my midwife, push her down my birth canal. So it took maybe like 30 minutes to push her down. And then it was like, okay, she's there. Now you can actually push her. So that I think was a good learning lesson for me. Like I said, that just because you've done like, just because I've given birth before didn't mean that it was going to go the same way. I thought that I was going to be fully dilated. She was going to be low, and that it would take me about half the time to push her. I was like, saying like, let's try to aim for under an hour, right? Because it took me 2.5 the last time. But I wasn't prepared for her to be so high up and just struggling to come down. So basically I was able to push her down, which felt so weird, so out of body. And then, but once she was there, my husband even says, he was like, it was crazy how once you were ready to like actually push, he was like, you pushed, like she flew out. You pushed her out so easy compared to like watching Remy. But then the plot twist was maybe why she had such a hard time descending is she had her hand right here on her face. And so when she did kind of come out, that part I could feel her hand, and I was like, that's why, like you were in the way of your own head because your hand was up. Yeah, cool. He's awake. Awesome. And so her hands on her face, and then her head actually was measuring pretty like decently big for my babies, right? And so she's kind of got a big head, and then she's got her hand in her head, and I was like, well, no wonder you wouldn't come down the birth canal. But like I said, once she was down, Josh said he's like, I don't want to like make you mad and say that it was easy, but it looked so much easier. He's like, you looked so much more in control, and you like knew what you were doing. Like, again, I wasn't like yelling and thrashing, and like nobody had to like yell at me, right? Like I still wasn't handling it as gracefully as I maybe expected. Like at the end of the day, I still was like very vocal. I still was struggling a little bit. I still definitely needed support. Like I was holding on to my mother-in-law. I'm holding on to Josh. Like I was very in need of support. Like I think I'm still going to be like a high support birth person no matter what kind of thing. Whereas like my mother-in-law she tells me, she's like, I'm just like, don't touch me, don't look at me, let me do my thing real quick, And I was like, no, like I'm like, hold me, help me, like rub my back, like something. But then, like I said, he said that I just felt like it just looked like I was so much more in control. And when I pushed her out, she came right out, and we go to lift her up because I'm in the birthing pool. So it was actually cool to do like a water birth, right, with her. And so I push her out, and then when they go to lift her, my cord was super short, and I had to immediately stand up to get her out of the water.
Oh,
And I was like, my legs are all wobbly, and they're like, okay, you have to stand up. Like, your cord is really short. We can't like lift her up out of the water. And so they lift her up, and I'm holding her, and she's like right super low, hovering above the water. And so now they have to help me get my leg over the tub, and I'm like so wobbly, so shaky. And then they lay me, the bed was right there, lay me in the bed. And then they hand me this baby. This is my third baby. And I'm like, how do you hold her? I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you just forget in the moment because you just, like I said, at the end of the day, what I've learned from birth is that you can be an expert. You can have so many babies. You can have all the knowledge in your pocket. But in the moment, having someone who's like, I got you. And not only do I have you, I have your best interest at heart. And I'm not like working for the hospital. I'm not working for other people. Like, and I can be that person for you to guide you and support you based off of what you told me before this moment, what's important to you. And my mother-in-law was able to like be that for me. My husband did a fantastic job, supporting me with this baby. And I felt like he also had so much more knowledge of like what I liked and what my wants and needs were and like what could help me. And so even though I didn't have you, which was really sad, I had the knowledge and almost the confidence that I could kind of carry through. And I still had people that were able to support me and be on my team and, like respect and honor the wishes that I was. Where's your mouth, baby? There you go. I know, you're sad. So that it was a similar experience, but I think that it was more empowering. It obviously was a shorter amount of time. And my husband just said that I just seemed in so much more control of this one and that it just seemed so much easier for me. And then recovery, even faster. And yeah, in the end, I think what I did learn that it was still hard, right? Because I think you go in obviously with your expectations. So with the first one, I don't know what I expected. I feel like I thought I was going to walk in there and sneeze them out. I have no idea. And then with Remy, I thought that I was going to, because I had done all this prep, that it was going to be easy, and it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. And so then this next one, I was like, okay, well, sure. I mean, clearly I'm just like, I'm delusional, right? I'm like, clearly this one's going to be easier because I've already done it. And at the end of the day, it's like each birth is individual and each one is going to have its different challenges, and you're not going to have the same, process. So with Remy, I had back to back to back to back contractions that I wasn't expecting. And then with Scotty, it was like she just was super high up and I wasn't expecting that. And so I just felt like it was so important to be knowledgeable about everything. But at the end of the day, it's like having that supportive team is what's going to make or break your experience. That it's so important to have people on your side that are just going to support and back you and like what's important to you, because in the moment you don't even remember what was important to you. You're just like, I can't be making decisions. I can't be in charge, and I need you guys to have my back on those things. And so that to me still was the most important piece of even this third birth, with you not being there, like having my husband and my mother-in-law be there to support me and to help me and to guide me was still very much needed, even with a third baby.
It's so incredible. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of those.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, yeah, I know that we had contact throughout that pregnancy, and I was so honored to get to support you in that way, even though we were so far apart. But it really was, I mean, you have just gotten more and more power with each one. And I think we always have the births we're meant to have, and it leads you to exactly where you're supposed to be. And Yeah, the team is everything, but at the end of the day, it is you did it. And just having like no doubt that you have that power within you no matter what, but that you see value and you can look back at your experiences, although very hard, but also very rewarding, and feeling that accomplishment. That's the point, is feeling positive and empowered, and not just I survived, or me and my baby survived, that you can actually
Yeah.
have that sense of like, I am freaking invincible. And you that so much, and just you're such an inspiration, and I just
No.
love you so much, and I'm just so you'll always be close to my heart. And just yeah, I'm just so grateful that you take the time to share all these stories. I would just like to touch on how has breastfeeding been with Scotty, and if there's any last minute like advice or anything that you would like people to know about. Just, it could be anything: pregnancy, postpartum, parenting.
Yeah. So with Scotty, I'd say this postpartum has been even better. So um I actually so I had her December 19th. I had already been signed up for a triathlon in April, and I realized how close together that was after I had her. And so I like was on my bike trainer at like 3 weeks postpartum because I felt great. Like I was like, I'm ready to go type of thing. Breastfeeding was great. Well, actually, so she was born. It's so funny when you don't do a hospital birth because they keep you for longer, obviously, at a hospital. And so she was born at 6:30 at night, and by 9 p.m. we were at home. And that whole night, I think she was just she was just born, right? So she's just so flipped on what her day and night was. She stayed awake crying all night long until 7 a.m. And so I was just putting her to the breast the whole time, which was obviously, as you get used, like your nipples have to get used to it. And I was like hurting a little bit, but it made my milk come in so strong. And so she is still loving it. She doesn't like bottles at all. She's gaining weight great. She's hitting all her milestones. She's actually, because she's trying to keep up with her siblings, right? She started crawling at 6 months. She's like been trying to like stand, and she's only 8 months old. And she like said dada. She's like babbling. So she is honestly thriving. She's doing so great. But on a postpartum note, I didn't tear again, which was so great. And I felt like I didn't even need I so after my C-section I was on like some pretty heavy painkillers. And then after Remy, I was still having I think it was like Advil and Tylenol, I don't know what, or ibuprofen and Tylenol, whatever they tell you to do, and they tell you to alternate. I was like pretty religiously doing that with Remy. And then with Scotty, I kind of was like, meh, like I don't really like, it would be time to take my meds, and I was like, yeah, I don't really like, I'm not really hurting, like I don't really need it. Um, and I felt like my bleeding went down super fast, and like I said, I was ready to like hop on the bike and start training for my triathlon like 3 weeks postpartum. And I took it so easy. I wasn't dumb about it. I didn't like run, immediately, but I was doing walks, I was doing biking, and I just felt so good postpartum. And like I said, now we're here 8 months later, and we're, breastfeeding's going well. She's trying solid. Like she's doing really great. I'm feeling really good. Um, I did have quite a big ab separation on this one, just because like the more babies you have, the more, your abs are going to separate. But I was able to, heal it down to less than a finger. And I'd say, I don't know if I'm someone, I know I've had three babies, but it's like, am I someone who can give people advice? But my only advice is just to like find what's important to you and find people that are going to like uphold those things. Because at the end of the day, now that I've had VBACs, I've had a lot of friends that will reach out to me that have had C-sections, and they're like, hey, I know you had a VBAC. Like, what did you do? Or like, what advice do you have? And, my advice is just, if it's important to you, then like do your research, and like, here's a lot of information I have. This is what I did. Here, like my advice is to get a doula, find a supportive team, XYZ, right? But if it if you're fine to have another C-section, or if that's the route that you want to take, or, just find what's important to you. Like you said, just having birth and saying, at least, we're all healthy and good as the bare minimum, like that is the bare minimum. So I think my advice would just be find what you're passionate about, find the parts of your birth that are like non-negotiable things that are important to you. Like, is it important that you breastfeed? Is it important that you have that golden hour? Is it important that you aren't being told to, I have so many friends who are like, I'm like bearing down and I'm about to push, and the nurse is like, don't push, the doctor's not here yet. And it's like, they talk about that experience being like kind of traumatic part of their birth. And I'm like, find a team who's going to like let you listen to your body and be in the room and be prepared, and not tell you to stop pushing when your body is trying to eject a baby. Like, there's not anything you can do to stop it. And I just feel like at the end, if you weren't satisfied with your first birth, like find those reasons why and like what you can do to prep yourself and prep your team. But then at the end of the day, know that like things are not always going to go to plan, and that's okay too. And it's okay for it to be a little bit different than you envision. And as long as you feel empowered and supportive throughout it, that is what's most important. Like, obviously, aside from you being healthy, your baby being healthy, like feeling empowered, feeling supportive is at the end of the day what's going to make your birth experience feel like it was successful.
Oh, beautiful advice. Oh, no, you are incredible. And I love following your journey and your three freaking awesome and adorable kids.
Thank you.
As I could talk to you forever. And I just feel just so grateful to have you in my life. And if you have that fourth baby, I'm always here.
Oh, you're flying out for it if it's a fourth. You're coming. But no, I love and appreciate you and all of I know that you have been such an impact on all of the, doula clients you've had, and people that you cross paths with, and you're just like such a light and such a force and so passionate. And it's such a privilege to have you on my team and on my side, and to be able to look at you for advice. And now you're about to have your baby, and you're kind of like, the master becomes the student. And I'm so excited to see how your journey is and how your birth goes, because it's going to be like one for the books, honestly.
I feel like it's going to be so humbling. It's going to be like the birth I've never seen, the baby I've never heard of. I really feel like I'm going to get a slap in the face, of like, but I'm also like, I need someone fearless. Like I think what the biggest thing coming up is like, whoever's on my team, you better talk me down. Because I always
grab you by the face.
bring up your birth every time. I was like, so I had this one client, and I had to go there with her. And like, if I I need to count on you all for me, because like I feel like I might be that roaring crazy psychopath, like so I just feel like just like, again, talking to your team, making sure they understand you and know what's important to you. And I'm gonna try for a home birth, but again, like if he's on board with that as well, then that's what's gonna happen. But I still feel like I'm just trying to have no expectations, because that can also like get in the way, and I need to surrender. And so it'll be interesting. You'll be the first to know. I'll be like, Bryce, I'm in labor, it's happening.
And I'm roaring like a psychopath. I'll be like, girl, same, I can relate.
Oh, well, I can't wait to share it all with you and just continue following your journeys. And just thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this and taking the time in your busy life.
Thank you for letting me share, because you were such a big piece of it. So I'm excited that I get to, tell everybody how great you are and how awesome you are. So.
But also, you're going to help so many with this video. Whoever watches, I just know it. Like, you are such an inspiration. So thank you so much, and all the love to you and your family. And we will hopefully talk soon again.
Yes, I can't wait to see how everything goes. And let me know I want all the juicy details. So
you'll be the first to know.
Perfect. All right. Well, you have a great day. I'm gonna go and feed my kids.
Bye, Bryce.
Bye. Love you.